longer anything, it's no longer news, especially in America for millennials. You might go to college in a place that is far, far away from where you would settle down in the future. You might actually work in one city and move to another. So you might want to settle down at one place and then decide to change. So your housing needs change. When you don't have a family, you might be comfortable living in an apartment, but later on, when you start a family, you might want to have a bigger house so that you will have a room for, the child to live in, not with a couple, right? Stuff like that. So that is then asking us a very interesting question. Do you buy a house as the only place you're going to live in? Or are you buying a house for the current needs? Or is it okay for you to buy a house that you don't necessarily live in, but you would feel comfortable renting out or live in it in the future? So if you think about buying a house as a hedge against future needs, as for either retirement or passive income, then your ability to buy houses will not no longer be restricted by the expense of the houses in the current living location. For instance, if you're talking about one day I can possibly imagine myself settling down when I'm in my 60s in Florida or in Texas, but currently I live in New York, then it's actually perhaps making sense for you to rent in a house with a bunch of other people, live in one bedroom with a bunch of other people as a single person, live in New York, but have a house elsewhere as your first house, because buying in New York might be more expensive than renting in New York. I think that is a calculation a lot of people can do for yourself, right? And also, you think about it, not like you can be renting in a lot of places where you have much better, let's say, when you have a family, you might be thinking, oh, my child needs to go to a very good school, but a good school for elementary school, that district might be very different from high school, might be very different from college. Your ability to afford it changes year after year as well. So it might be making sense for you to buy a house in somewhere else where it's actually affordable. When rental income is making sense, the house pays itself, so you will have a place. You no longer feel nervous when you retire. You will actually live comfortably in a house of your own. But the house is paying itself, is actually making rental income for you when you live in a different area. For instance, let's say when you're a single person, you do the calculation, is probably living in a big house with a bunch of other single person people would be making sense. You make friends, you pay less income, less on rental. You don't have to pay for a big house because it changes anyways. And then when you have a smaller family, you are not going to give birth to all your kids all together, unless if you're giving birth to twins or stuff like that, right? So in that case, your housing needs change year after year. And early on, if you have enough of income to reset the cost of your housing needs, and you're going to be okay either way to rent. Because why do people want to buy a house that they know a few years later they're going to sell? Why don't you actually buy a house in an area that or buying a house can actually be just more for down the road you want to settle down than actually right now I have to need it right now, and I buy and I sell, I buy and I sell. I mean, it's just not making sense. So what I'm trying to say is, perhaps there is a different way of thinking. Perhaps a lot of people can become homeowners earlier than they thought, but it's actually for rental. So they become investors for rental income, and they will actually have a house that down the road will always give them rental income, and will all like when they want to retire, they have a place to live in that they feel very comfortable, and they don't have to pay rent anymore when they're older. but they can actually keep renting in other places and enjoy, the cheaper rent and enjoy the flexibility of getting a bigger or smaller in different locations according to school districts, according to their employment needs, more flexibility. So I'm now really thinking quite creatively how millennials, if they are really thinking about, all right, if I'm thinking about, renting in big cities right now, in places that is making financial sense, but buying in areas where I might want to retire, a lot of those retirement houses that can be converted into good rental income, uh, passive income generating sources, are also located in areas that are cheaper. You don't necessarily have to buy your rental income and retirement house in San Francisco Bay Area if you work there. So that being said, that means a person can actually become a homeowner, but the home doesn't have to be the one they live in, and the home can pay itself off. If we're talking about rental income, and rental houses as their first house, it suddenly allows a lot of people to be a lot more creative about what they can do. So let me know if this is an idea that is a little bit too crazy, sort of makes sense, doesn't make sense, or, it would make sense, but I need someone to sort of help me. What are the areas that are good for rental? I haven't really thought everything out. I mean, it's just like an idea that I have in my mind. And again, I'm very, very interested in helping people creatively solve their housing issue, especially for younger generation or people who haven't yet bought their first homes. So let me know, what are your thoughts. I mean, you can totally say makes sense, stupid, or really good idea, or you have like a completely different way of seeing this. Everything's fine with me. So let me know. Thank you and take care. Bye bye.